Okay. Hi, we're about to get started on our hemp versus marijuana meeting. And I'd like to thank you all for coming tonight, Marguerite. So, we're here to talk about the uses and the current laws surrounding this new phenom. And we've been selling CBD oils, tinctures, creams, vapes for, would you say, I don't know, 6 months, 5 months maybe. And it's been selling off the shelf. So I wanted to talk to you guys about and let you know the differences between hemp and marijuana from an agricultural standpoint, what it's used for, how the Food and Drug Administration views it, as well as the drug enforcement agencies and federal and state law. So we're going to start talking about the chemical makeup of the differences between marijuana versus hemp. The main difference is going to be the THC. So in a traditional marijuana product, the tetrahydrocannabinol is the THC level, and it could range anywhere from 5 up on to 30% for some of the more extreme marijuana, what would you call it? Products, yep. Whereas hemp is going to have a level less than 0.3%. So that is the main difference, which is not going to cause a high, if you will, or the psychoactive effect that we all commonly think of when we think of marijuana. The next slide goes on to talk about the cultivation and the key things here that I found interesting was that hemp can grow pretty much anywhere. It can grow closely together, up to 4 inches apart, grown in large quantities on multiple acres and in multiple variety of climates, and its growth cycle is 108 to 120 days. Wow. Versus marijuana has to be in a controlled environment. It needs to be warm. It needs to be humid, and for it to properly grow. And then the growth cycle is 60 to 90 days. Medical cannabis also cannot be grown too close to each other because it'll typically grow outwards. It's a short, stocky plant, kind of like me. We grow outwards. So they're typically planted 6 feet apart. When you have marijuana growing close to hemp fields, there is a the hemp can actually ruin the marijuana crop because it'll dilute the marijuana psychoactivity because it likes to pollinate with other plants, and once the marijuana crop is pollinated with the hemp, it will ruin the whole crop. So they try not to obviously plant them close together. When we look at the appearance, you can kind of look at this slide. The hemp plant is the smaller one, and it has small, long, skinny leaves. And then the marijuana plant is going to have the thicker leaves. They might cross over. They're a little bit more dense. The marijuana plant leaf is going to be more of an olive color versus the leaf for the hemp is going to be more of a spring green kind of color. And then you can see the size. So the hemp plant's going to grow nice and tall. It's going to be very airy. You're going to be able to see through it versus the marijuana plant's going to be a little bit more denser. It's got the pods or the flowers, which look like nuggets basically with hair on them. Kind of gross. But that's the difference. So you're growing the marijuana plant more for the bud or the flower versus the leaves and stems on the hemp plant, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. Okay? So when you observe those two plants side by side in a field, you're going to see that the marijuana plant is short and fat and bushy, and the hemp plant's going to be typically skinnier and taller. Preferably, I would like to be a hemp plant, but the next slide, if we go on, is talking about the history of cannabis. So this is where a lot of people, like my mom's generation, were probably brought up on the fact that marijuana is the same as hemp. Because in the 1970s, there was a war against drugs, and the cannabis plants were all lumped into one big pile, and they were put on a list of bad things. So people just didn't, they thought, oh, we'll believe in the government because that's what you did back then. Nowadays, we question, as we should. So, but there's still, again, 45 years later, the government still seems to have some confusion distinguishing between the two plants. Legislation is currently in the works, of course, we all know that, with the new Farm Bill Act of 2018 to slowly differentiate between hemp and marijuana. And that is the goal, so that all walks of life can benefit from both plants. With the legalization of marijuana for recreation and medicinal purposes in our northern state, Michigan, yay, that just recently passed, and states throughout the country have done the same. Other countries have already legalized hemp and marijuana in most countries abroad. So we are just kind of slow on the uptake, which is typical. But there are products already out on the market that fall under the healthy dietary supplements, skin products, clothing, and accessories that are all lumped into the hemp-based application. And there's over 25,000 uses for hemp.
Wow.
Unbelievable, right? And we've been not growing it here in the United States. We've been shipping in, I think the last stat that I read was 25% from China.
Oh my.
And another 70-some% from all other countries.
Wow.
So we've been importing instead of creating it here, which just seems crazy to me. Because why wouldn't we want to take care of our own?
Exactly.
So we're going to move on to the laws and regulations at this point. So with obviously many of the states legalizing medical marijuana and recreational cannabis, there's still more, or there have been more arrests for cannabis possession every year than for any other violent crime combined.
Wow.
Does that make sense?
No.
So we're sticking our money in places where we should be investing the money to build crops and grow and help our farmers locally. So a lot of these arrests are based on racial prejudice and politics, which is sad. These arrests can ruin the future of young Americans while also costing the taxpayers a fortune to enforce the law. And,
I'm sorry, what did you say more arrests are for racial, and what was the other thing?
they are based on racial prejudice and politics.
Politics.
Versus, why would you arrest someone, for cannabis?
Right.
But here's some statistical numbers. There's over 700,000 arrests in 2014. So that's basically one arrest every 45 seconds for that year. So they go back, that's the most recent statistics that they could compile. And over $3 billion in taxpayer money spent to enforce these the prohibition against cannabis. And then 45% of all drug arrests in 2014 were related to cannabis, not heroin, crack.
The killers.
The main killers, right? So I just find that odd. And, why are we wasting money on that when we can be putting $3 billion into our agricultural and farming business and help the farmers
Yeah.
produce
Positive,
more
profitable.
local crops.
Yeah.
And it's creating community. Another statistic I found, so in 1971, of course, the government had still categorized cannabis under the Schedule 1 drug list for the, which is the highest level, right? And at that same time, the Department of Health and Human Services filed a patent that included cannabinoids as an antioxidant and a neuroprotectant. So, the same time our government was denying or making it unlawful for cannabis, the Department of Health and Human Services was filing a patent. And why would the government want to file a patent on a natural product? Let's think about that. Because they wanted to prohibit, and I think this is why they kept marijuana and hemp on the illegal list, is because these studies had found that cannabinoids, which are in marijuana and hemp, have been found to have antioxidant properties unrelated to receptors, and this newfound property makes cannabinoids useful in the treatment and prophylaxis of wide variety of oxidation-associated diseases, such as ischemic, age-related inflammatory, and autoimmune diseases. Huge, right? Because what have we all been fighting, over the past couple decades?
HIV
Yep.
and
The
cancer.
cannabinoids are focused to have particular applications as neuroprotectants, for example, in limiting neurological damage following ischemic insults, such as strokes and trauma, or in the treatment and neurodegenerative diseases such as Alzheimer's disease, Parkinson's disease, and HIV dementia. So, our government in 1971 filed this patent knowing that this plant, whether it be marijuana or hemp, could help people. I find that terrible.
It's disturbing.
It's disturbing, right? So, but follow the money. So
Yeah.
they want, who do you think was in their pockets? Big Pharma. Big Pharma
Yeah,
said,
that's
you
right.
filed the patent, now we've got control over that drug and how we use it. Right? So Big Pharma now had the control, right? So even with today, the Drug Enforcement Administration just descheduled Epidiolex, which is a synthetic version of marijuana, but it does have some extractions which are from the marijuana plant included in this pharmaceutical product.
Wow.
And they declassified that down to a class 5, which roughly puts it in the same class as cough syrup with like a
Like you have to
small dose of opioid or
ask, so you
something
gotta
that
ask for it behind the
you're going to
counter?
get a prescription for it.
Oh.
But it's under a class 5, which it's so the definition of that would be it has no potential for abuse, and it has limited quantities of certain narcotics.
Okay.
On the other hand, there's also, in 1985, there was a synthetic cannabis that was legalized and sold under the name Marinol to aid cancer patients.
Wow.
And in that first year, it grossed over $100 million in annual sales for the pharmaceutical industry.
Wow.
So you know who's in the pockets, right? Right?
Yes.
They control where all of this goes, and they've been in control for, as long as anyone can remember, right? So, talking about declassifying or putting the Epidiolex, which is that new drug that just came out this year, it is derived from CBD from marijuana, not hemp. And that was declassified, like I said, from a Schedule 1 down to a Schedule 5. And the reason I bring that up is that when we talk about marijuana, because it is becoming legal in more states, we can see the change over the horizon.
Yeah.
So pharmaceutical companies are coming on board with it. I just recently went to that talk with the pharmacy. She is a compounding pharmacy in Fairview, and she was all on board to sell CBD products in her pharmacy, and the DEA, which controls her license to dispense prescription drugs to clients, disallowed it. The Ohio Board of Pharmacy said, no, you can't sell any form of CBD regardless. So now let's talk about the differences real quick so that you can understand why the Board of Pharmacy put the kibosh on it. So let's look at the psychoactive cannabis, which is marijuana. They're seeing studies that have shown the psychoactive cannabis is far less harmful than other less legal drugs, such as alcohol and tobacco. So those studies are coming about because why? There's all this research now that people are able to do because marijuana is legal. They can go buy it. They can do the research. They don't need to be attached to a college or a big pharmaceutical company. They can actually do the research on their own. When you look at the non-psychoactive cannabis, which is hemp, we talked about that earlier. There's over 25,000 different applications that are currently even being used, and they're healthy and sustainable.
Wow, I'd like to see that list.
Yeah. So the four major breakdowns of those 25,000 products are the hemp extract, which is what
Tincture?
you're looking at from a tincture standpoint, and that has promising medical applications to help with epilepsy, chronic pain, inflammation, and even cancer. The hemp seeds, which would be the next category that I need to point out, has been used by athletes and healthy conscious consumers who are adding that to their daily diet.
So you can actually put seeds
Yep.
inside your
we
salad
actually
or
have
whatever?
some on top of your salad, and it's a great form of protein.
What?
You can put it in your shakes, and it's got like a nutty flavor.
Wow, I didn't know you could
Yep.
eat that.
Yep. And then the third category that I'd like to bring up is the hemp oil, which contains the essential fatty acids, great for your skin and vitamins. Has key amino acids in there. Combining that with some of the superior products that we have to offer in our body care products and skin care. Again, BioLeaf does have a skincare line.
What about the cream? It's not
And the
in there?
cream is actually great. It's considered part of the body care products, so that it's very moisturizing. It's
So it's
pain
got the oil
relieving.
in it?
Yep.
Oh, okay.
Yep. And then the fourth category is hemp fabrics, which would be made from the fibers.
Twine.
Yep. And more companies are now offering hemp apparel.
Wow.
And a full line of products. I've actually seen shoes
Wow.
made from hemp, because hemp has actually been made. If we look at the Model T Ford, that Ford was the first car created to run on hemp gasoline,
Wow.
and the car itself was actually made out of hemp. It had hemp plastic bumper.
Wow.
So plastics use it, to create product. So the more and more you look into hemp, you're like, we've been using it. We haven't been growing it in the United States, but we sure as hell have been using it and creating products, but we're missing out on the financial aspects of why aren't we growing that in-house? It's kind of like if you say, I could save a couple $100 by growing a garden in my backyard. I got tomatoes, cucumbers this year, herbs, because every time I buy herbs from the grocery store, I don't use them in time. And they get wilty and go bad, right? But if you could walk out to your own garden and pick parsley or basil and use it fresh from your garden, it's more of a cost savings for me.
Right.
And it's fresh and tastes better. You
Right.
got much better quality. So
why not grow it here?
Why not grow hemp here? Instead of having it shipped over after it's been processed, right? And we're
Right.
paying them to process it when we could be paying people here. That's a job, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So, I'm going to skip over this next slide and we'll come back to it. But the benefits of using CBD from a tincture standpoint, a vape standpoint, a cream standpoint, or the capsules are numerous. We know a lot of our clients here have high anxiety. I've seen it reduce depression in one of my friends. Epilepsy would be a huge one. I don't know anyone with epilepsy, but I've heard and have seen the studies on it. Huge. Arthritis. I've actually personally felt the balance from the CBD hemp in my hands. Diabetes. It has been known to significantly reduce the incidence of needing insulin.
Wow.
And then helping people quit smoking. Or when we looked at that, I had an article sitting out on addiction.
Yeah.
So we have, counseling down the hall that deals with, addiction.
Okay.
Whether it be alcohol or opioids or whatever they're addicted to, they're going to counseling here that's mandated by the courts. So, helping people like that, and it does help them eliminate. In fact, my boyfriend actually found an article that it helps eliminate addiction to credit cards.
Wow.
I don't know if that was because he was telling me that, hey, you might want to read this article because I use my credit cards too much or what. But so anyway, so addiction, regardless of what it is, it does help because I think it clears your mind. It clears the fog. It eliminates, the need or the want that you have to have something.
The anxiety.
The anxiety, right, of it missing. So huge from a medical standpoint. So, so now we talk about, so why is cannabis still illegal in some states? Which in Ohio, they've gone to medical marijuana is okay for medical purposes, and they've actually increased the list recently to allow for most of these categories that we just talked about, which is great, but there's still a need to pursue the use for other avenues as well. But, we talk about the politics and where the money comes from. So why is cannabis still getting a bad rap? If we break down the advertising and the lobbying money on an annual basis, pro-cannabis companies are spending $1.5 million on, advertising and lobbying for laws to help increase the awareness and the production of and so on, and the opposite anti-cannabis campaigns like Big Pharma, alcohol companies, which I would not have suspected, but makes sense because they want people drinking their alcohol before relaxing and taking some CBD to chill out. And then you've got the police unions, for-profit prisons, where we talked about the arrests in 2014 were over 700,000. I mean, again, 1 per 45 seconds. That's just crazy. So they would lose out on, you know,
It's
these
awful.
prison farms that they've basically kept in business that are privatized. So crazy. And then, you know, Big Pharma, we all know they've got billions and
awful.
billions of dollars that they're spending to keep the prohibition in place. So though that's, you know, kind of a breakdown, I wanted to bring up the legalities when we talk about Ohio specifically, because that was of interest to me. So back in August of this year, 2018, the Board of Pharmacy sent out a letter, of course, to all pharmacists, medical, who was it? Medical programs and hospitals and I think that was it. So those 3 areas. They sent out a letter saying that they are letting everyone know that the Board of Pharmacy is strictly prohibiting the sale of CBD products in Ohio. Okay? So that put everyone on, like, why?
Alert,
What? Yeah. So...
Is that when you were worried about your products?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. And we took them off the shelf for a little bit, and we got some information from our attorney that works with BioLeaf, which is the company that we represent here at Ace Serenino Massage and Spa, and they clarified. So I wanted to read a couple things from his letter. So his name is Attorney Kite, K-I-G-H-T. His first name is Rod. He's actually a lawyer out of Asheville, North Carolina. And he works with BioLeaf on all the state laws and gives them information and guidance. So when we let him know that, you know, gave him a copy of that letter, and, you know, there was a huge uproar, here's his comeback. So a summary of the Board of Pharmacy's errors when we delve into the details. One, CBD is not on the controlled substance list for federal or Ohio law. So it's not on the list. It's neither illegal or legal, right? That's their take. It's on the list as marijuana is a prohibitive drug and is unlawful under the definition of Ohio law, as well as federal, because marijuana is still a class 1 drug under the federal law. So makes sense, right? So they're thinking that hemp is still classified within the laws from the 1970s. And Ohio law actually might still be dated back, you know, it might still be that old that no one's ever really redone anything on it because it wasn't an issue, right? Until this CBD phenomenon has kind of gotten pushed to the forefront because of the new marijuana industry, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So everything's kind of coming to fruition, like, hey, the Department of Health in the 1970s said it's good for these uses. Why aren't we using it for these uses, right? So more and more people are looking for healthy alternatives, natural. They don't want to take the prescription drugs. They want something that's natural. They want something that's going to help them long term and not have all of the synthetic or man-made back end, you know, repercussions.
Right. Side effects.
Yep, side effects.
Kids getting strung out
Yep.
on the...
Strung out on it, yeah. So the only thing that when I looked through the letter from Attorney Kite, and I actually printed out, let me get this letter over here, from the governor, I think that's still over here, right?
It was, I thought, too.
Someone stole it. The letter from the governor said the same thing. So his take on it was, and that's why I printed it out, and I keep this in our lobby. The board stated that CBD oil derived from hemp or derived from marijuana, which was in parentheses, so the board did not specify. It just strictly stated that HB, which is the law covering this, 523, was created, the state's medical marijuana control program. It made no exception for the possession of or sale of CBD oil. So what they're assuming is that the oil that someone would be caught with would be made from marijuana. Not the case here, not the case in any store that I've actually looked at. Lucky's Market in Lakewood. There was a compounding pharmacy down in Strongsville. A natural grocery store down in that area that we went in and bought some capsules from. But the HB 523, which is the law that covers it, includes CBD oil in the definition of marijuana, regardless of whether it is a plant extract or a synthetic product. So they're even excluding the synthetic version that came out in the 80s, that Marinol, that helps cancer patients.
Wow.
Because it's including the definition of marijuana. The CBDs that you see out on the streets, which is why you see it, it's everywhere, is hemp-based. So that's why we're all comfortable. It's all kosher. And even if Ohio, when they put forth and finally come out with a final version of their medical marijuana laws, if they have in there that they're classifying hemp and marijuana CBD oil under the same, they would look like idiots. Because the federal government has already distinguished between hemp and marijuana. And they're saying marijuana because it's like dangerous, a dangerous drug. I don't know. This doesn't even make any sense. So, just to clarify, that's why you still see it on all the shelves. So I keep this in the lobby because it specifically, and this is from the governor. I printed this off of his website, and it specifically states marijuana in the definition of marijuana. So that's why CBD from hemp is unclassified. It's not on the laws. It's not on the books. And if someone were to come forth and challenge, so let's say they went into Lucky's Market and decided to arrest whoever they would arrest there, the store owner or whatever. Let's say they went in and decided, in a few months' time, the Farm Bill is going to be passed at the federal level, so the president's going to sign off on it, and it's going to exclude hemp from the definition of marijuana, and it's going to classify that in its own right, and then declassify the level of where marijuana falls on the DEA list, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Which is the Drug Enforcement Agency. So, because nationwide, it's going to be across the board, I foresee that Farm Bill, and that's why it's taking so long for them to come up with the exact wording before he signs the bill, because they want it to be right, and they don't want to have to take this back to Congress and the Senate and the House moving forward. So that's my take on it. So just making sure everyone knows that that's why you're still seeing it. That's why we're still selling it. It's helped so many people, and I can't imagine that they would want to, prevent someone, let's say, that has PTSD, from getting a natural product that will help them reduce their anxiety and, calm their life down and make it normal. It helps me sleep. I take a dose every night, and let's talk about dosages. So when we met with or went to the seminar with the pharmacist, she basically broke it down as a pharmacist of what she would recommend for dosages from the sublingual standpoint, and she said not everybody is the same.
Right.
And coming from a pharmacist, I thought, wow, that's odd and great that she is thinking it's not a height-weight ratio. Like if you weigh 200 pounds, you should take 2 capsules or 2 aspirin. It's not like that. If you're under 12, you should take this. So she said that CBD is not like that. So it's based on your body's ability to process and absorb through the bloodstream the amount of CBD that will be enough to replenish your body's depleted receptors, or painkillers, or enough to fill all the holes, if you will.
Like your tolerance.
So it's kind of like if you were a sponge and you put CBD in all the little holes, whatever your body needs to fill the gaps is what your body will absorb. So no one dosage is appropriate for everyone. So that's why she suggested, so a full dosage would be the 1 milliliter full glass dropper. She said start off the first 2 weeks with 1/4 of the dropper and increase, if you don't see any significant difference, increase it to a half a dosage and then a full dosage after 1 month. And she said, depending on the strength, you'll be able to evaluate your own self. So it's not like, okay, here's a pill, take this and you'll feel better.
Yeah.
It's you have to adjust to what your needs are.
Yeah, you have
right?
to know your body.
And she said you can add a dose. So she recommends starting off taking it at night because you might get sleepy initially in taking this, and then increasing and adding that second dose in the morning if need be, and a third dose midday. So depending on, let's say you had your leg amputated and you've got massive pain, you might need 3 dosages throughout the day, just like you would have needed
Pain pills.
Advil, whatever, inflammation, aspirin, whatever. You may need those 3 doses, but for someone who just needs it for sleep and to create a balance, they might just need that, 1/4 of the dropper. So completely individualized, which I love because I feel like it's the same. Like no one diet is going to work for everybody.
Right.
I can eat bread and I blow up to 200 pounds, and somebody else could live on bread and they are skinny as a rail.
Yeah.
Like, how is that even possible? So every person's, different.
Right.
The inhalation, which is the vape pens, up to 4 dosages per day, and that could be anywhere from 1 to 3 hits on the vape pen. It's not smoking. It does go directly to and absorbed into the lungs, which then goes right into the bloodstream. So I've been told that is actually the best option to get the quickest benefit. So it's the fastest way to get into the bloodstream and the most direct, because it's not going through the bloodstream and some of it getting absorbed into the digestive system under the tongue. It's all going in and then directly getting distributed through the blood, if that makes sense, because your oxygen is what helps carry everything through the body. The ingestion, which is the capsules, that is suggested that it is for people with digestive issues, metabolism issues through the such as the liver, gastrointestinal tract. So those types of issues where you would need it to start from the inside and work its way out. So you're fixing the problem from the inside out, which makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
And then you've got your topicals. So the topicals are applied on the skin, and the skin is actually your biggest organ. So it is actually getting into your body quicker. The pain relief is almost instant. It comes in balms, or we actually have the creams here. Like I said earlier, there is a skincare line that's through on the website. But it does relieve aches and pains in muscles and joints. And it is topical, but it does help long term to help your body tolerate and eliminate pain. So those are the main, ways to take it. There are other like dabs, and if you want to look into that, that's fine. We don't deal with that here, so I didn't look into it and didn't feel like it was appropriate to bring up. But there are other means of getting CBD into the body, and other products like gummy bears and that kind of thing. But it seems more that you would find that with the marijuana products,
Mm-hmm.
and not necessary from a health standpoint here. Unless of course someone didn't like any of the other means of getting the cannabidiol into their system. So the questions you want to ask before you pick a product is how long you want the effects to last, how quickly you need the relief, if you need to be discreet or not, and then what kind of effects you are looking for, so long term. So, figuring out those questions, talking. I know you can come in here and talk to any of the practitioners that work here. Most of them will know or have tried one or more of the products on themselves and can tell you what works and what doesn't work. And the information that I've given here, you're able to, pass along to they're able to pass along to the clients that come in. So
We even have pet products.
Yep. Oh, yes, I didn't mention that. So we do, the BioLeaf also includes the pet line tincture as well as the pet treats. And I do have one, she's actually my best friend, who gave it to her cat who is 14 years old. Her vet said she's excited about it. She's glad she found it, and she was happy that she was going to be providing that to her. And it made a world of difference in her treatment. She had stage 2 liver
Cancer?
no failure, and it has helped her immensely to kind of reduce the anxiety.
Wow.
There was pain involved because she was kind of listless and she wasn't eating. It's increased her appetite. So great things. So, and I did see a video online from one of my other friends out of state that had an elderly dog with hip and joint pains trying to get up the stairs. So one video was that. 20 minutes later, after they gave them the treat, the CBD treat, they were jumping around and playing with another dog that was in the
20
household.
minutes?
Yeah. And so, it works. And I feel like it works that same way for me, for sleep. And, that's why I started taking it, because I had the accident in February and couldn't sleep because of the pain.
Ooh, I didn't know you had an accident.
Yep, the snowmobile accident.
Oh.
So, if you want any of I have the information in PowerPoint presentation if you want me to email that to you.
Yes.
Or I also have other PowerPoint presentations on, like we talked about how to take things, the sublingual, the dosage. I have all of those that actually come from the company that we work with, which is BioLeaf. They have those online, and it's got some great information. So if you're interested, I can email you whatever PowerPoint presentation you're interested in. If you go online to aserenitynowmassage.com, fill out the contact page and get back with us. We'll email that out to you as soon as possible. The whole presentation is available, as well as some of the other statewide, as well as just information from that pharmacist
Okay.
that we met with, and you can get that as well.
Okay, I'll go online then and
Great.
let you know what I want.